My name is Sanmit Singh, and I will be your host. I'm joining you from the East Coast in Maryland, and our guest today is Namita Jaspal, all the way from Chandigarh. And what's interesting is every episode has been about Sikh treasures from around the world. What better place for Sikh treasures than Punjab or Amritsar, which is sort of like the hub of our faith? So I'm going to start a little bit. I'm going to start off with a little bit about the Sikh Foundation. 50 years of art, or in Sikh art specifically in the United States, is amazing. Uh, Not until 10, 15, maybe 20 years ago, Sikh art was just in the hands of a handful. Even the knowledge, whether it was books, exhibitions, was very, very scarce. So I think all the hard work of Dr. Kapani, his team, Sonia, and countless others in the past really 10, 15 years, Sikh art has encouraged young folks like myself and countless others to be educated and get active in the Sikh art and antiquity space. So thank you to the Sikh Foundation for that, and thank you for hosting this. I want to begin today by just a little bio on Namita, so we all get introduced to who she is and what she does. This little introduction is nothing compared to all the amazing work that she does. I'll give you a little insight into her background. Namita Jaspal inherited skills of art and aesthetics and passion for science, but opted to pursue in her post-graduation conservation of cultural property after her graduation in science from Delhi University in '92. Then 4 years of intense training at the National Museum Institute provided the right foundation to start a career in conservation. She is currently practicing conservation consultancy for heritage property, including monuments and collections. She has been doing independent research in conservation techniques and procedures in Indian context. Her expertise includes conservation and preservation technologies and procedures for conservation of varied materials like wall paintings, paper, photographs, textiles, ceramics, stone, metal, and archaeological objects. So without further ado, Namita, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us. And we're going to jump right into it. I think I'm going to talk for another 2 minutes before I hand it over to you. What everyone is so anxious and excited to talk about today is the Chola Sahib of Guru Har Gobind Sahib Ji, which is the famous Sakhi, the one of the most popular Sikh festivals, which is Diwali or Bandi Shor Divas. So Bandi Shor, the Sakhi goes that Guru Har Gobind Sahib Ji was imprisoned in Gwalior, and Jahangir, the then government, said that we would release you, but Guru Har Gobind Sahib Ji said that I would be okay with leaving this prison if you allow for the 52 kings, the other Raje that you've imprisoned here. And Jahangir laughed and said that if any of them can hang on to your chola, I will let them go. So Guru Har Gobind Sahib Ji got a special chola made with 52 kaliyan, and every one of these Raje held on to this chola and were freed and left the government of that time in awe. So I think most of the Sikh world had no idea that this chola actually existed. This was in a small pind near Ludhiana, and it was gifted to that Sangat by Guru Sahib themselves. And about 10 or 12 years ago, Namita was tasked with this grand task of conservating such an important, priceless relic of the Sikh community. So I think this is an amazing, and I'm really excited to hear what Namita has to say and how she went about working on this and what the processes were. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Namita.
Sat Shri Akal, and thank you, Sumit. Thank you, Tanmeet and Sonia also. Rather, I would like to thank Sikh Foundation International for inviting me over to share my experiences as a conservator, particularly with Sikh heritage. And my warm wishes to all the participants over here. I'll just start sharing my screen now. So today I'll be talking mainly about two important conservation works that are related to Sikh heritage, and I personally really feel privileged to be able to do these works. First is about Chola Sahib Ji, which is of sixth Chola Sahib Ji of sixth Guru, Guru Har Gobind Sahib Ji, and I have written the wrong date. It is 2011 instead of 13. I'm sorry for that. So we visited the village in the month of July 2011, and this was the condition of Chola Sahib Ji. We couldn't open it at that time, but on 18th of July, of course, the process of conservation had to start, and it was taken out of the display case. And the on-site conditions I would like to share with everybody, like because the Gurdwara Sahib Ji was under construction, so all the prayers and everything was happening in a big room near the Langar Hall, and this is where the Sangat would sit in front of Guru Granth Sahib Ji, and this was the portion, that is the portion where Guru Granth Sahib Ji is seated, and this is the portion which was given to us to do our work of conservation. And the photo has been taken from the entrance. So the Sangat would just pass through the Chola Sahib Ji conservation work being done and then offer their prayers in the next area. We were always accompanied by Sevadarjis and who would really help us out in whatever we needed. And as we just started opening up the Chola Sahib Ji, which was pinned onto a board with the help of thumb pins, we found that the upper layer was that was displayed, that was visible from outside, was much darker than the inner portion, which was protected. Now, the process of conservation, first of all, I would like to mention the basic steps that we go through. First of all, we go through the history or the case history of the object, which is called anamnesis, and then we make a condition assessment, the present condition of the object, and analyze. We do various kinds of analysis. Then we make a conservation plan based on whatever we have observed in the diagnosis, and then the curative or actual curative and preventive conservation processes are carried out. And I'll just mention the analysis, which is visual, microscopic, and the chemical tests. The deterioration problems that we saw in the Chola Sahib Ji were basically soiling and accretions, stress due to vertical display, stains due to rust and other things. And rust was because of the thumb pins which were used to display it on a board. And the wooden support was also damaging. And previous restoration attempts, natural aging, of course, was there. Now, this is the first look through a visual inspection. You can see a lot of dirt and grime that has been trapped on the dress. And because of this dust and grime, which is, you can call it soiling, the microorganisms get a substrate to grow upon and propagate. So you can see, I'll just use a pen to... So you can see this area. There was a huge circular fungal colony, which was half of it was on the arm of the Chola Sahib Ji, and half of it was on the board, on the rather velvet clothing, which was on the board. Another thing that we observed by a normal visual inspection was that it was a striped fabric, and the stripes were because of they were made because of the difference in the weave pattern. both the lighter area and the dark area, the thicker area, were plain weaves, but the thicker area was a tight plain weave, while the thinner area was loose plain weave. So the loose plain weave had just vanished. It was destroyed, lost, and so the thicker portions were joined together and they were sewn together as previous restoration attempts. There were thumb pins also, not just on the Chola Sahib Ji. There was a kinari which was holding them because the edges were not very strong. We had to remove the kinari and the thumb pins. Then we also, after this visual inspection and the record, whatever we recorded regarding Chola Sahib Ji, we made some observations with magnifiers and microscopes, and we confirmed the weave pattern and other things, the microorganisms also, the fungus that was growing over there. Apart from that, we did some solubility tests of the fabric itself, and this was actually possible because when we were shifting Chola Sahib Ji from the board to a proper surface, we found certain fallen threads, and we just picked up those threads for the analysis. There were not many of them, so we were depending on very little amount of fibers that we could collect from there. And luckily, it was like a magic that we could make out some very good slides out of it. After the chemical analysis, we had to watch it under the microscope also, and they were very interesting. I won't go into the details, but if some fabric person is or conservator sees this slide, it is amazing that in just a few slides that we could make, they were so perfect, showing all the proper things that we need to identify the fiber. So they were showing all the proper characteristics. It's a triangular rod-like structure. Then comes the curative conservation process, which involves initially this was the first time that Chola Sahib Ji was being treated scientifically, and we were also very scared, like everybody else around, the Sangat around. And we wanted minimum intervention. Actually, that is the main thumb rule of conservation practice also. So we used some sponges, which are special natural rubber sponges, and they are also called dust attracting sponges. We had cut them into smaller pieces, and with that we would just touch the Chola Sahib Ji and the dirt would come out. You can see these ones, and there was a huge lot of such sponges used for 3 days. This is just a little portion when we started. Actually, we didn't take much pictures after that. We were more focused on the work. So many such sponges, little pieces of these sponges were used to first pick up the loose dirt. But there was still a lot of dirt and stains and many other things accumulated within the fabric. So we, of course, had to decide on the wet cleaning that is done in deionized water. But we were not using any saponifying or any cleansing agent because we could not risk Chola Sahib Ji. This was the first time, and it would have been a shock kind of treatment for Chola Sahib Ji if we would have used a lot of rinsing and all. So they all need a lot of rinsing so that there is no residue left. So we just dipped Chola Sahib Ji in deionized water, and we didn't dry it just like that, like the normal drying process. We dried it with blotters. We took out the water from one corner and dried it with blotters and then air dried it. So not much of movement or handling was done in wet cleaning and its drying process. But you can see again, I missed another slide in which you can see some cans over here. These are deionized water, and there is one slide where I was showing that an empty deionized water can was filled with this water, and it was very dark black water. And people, Sangat, would like to take those cans of this water to their homes out of faith, and almost all of it was used in this. And after wet cleaning, you could easily feel the strength Chola Sahib Ji had gained. It was much stronger than before, not exactly like new, but it had gained a lot of strength. And now we could open it. So there are many slides, many pictures, and we don't have that much of time, so I haven't included all of them. So we could open it. There are pictures in which the whole thing is opened, and we could count. We didn't stretch it much to know the exact length, but it was given on in one of the information leaflets. Oh God. Leaflets over here. I don't think if it is there on the display case anymore, because there's a new display case now, and we are planning to do Seva with even better display case in which the microenvironment is controlled and Chola Sahib Ji is preserved for longer. So there should be no dust, oxygen, or low oxygen environment and low humidity. So here the information is given, and in this also it is given that it is not exactly 52 kaliyan. Kaliyan are 18 to 20, but there are taniya on the top, and small and big taniya. And if we count all of them together, then the number is 52. So this information was initially there when we saw the Chola Sahib Ji first in the old display case. So after wet cleaning, when it was a little easier to handle Chola Sahib Ji, we had to take very carefully the old restoration. Still now, we were using most of the time we were using cotton gloves or nitrile gloves. When we were doing wet treatment, it was rubber glove, nitrile gloves, and when we were doing inspection, it was cotton gloves. But it's not very easy. It's not very, you can't do precise work with gloves on. So here we didn't want to damage whatever little pieces of stripes were preserved. So we took out all these old sews, and these are again, there were many old restoration attempts. So it was all open, and now the stripes were hanging, just they were aligned in their proper shape. Even if there is a gap, it was left like that. And to fill all that, we used instead of needle and thread, because it would create more holes and all, would weaken the fabric, we used a very mild adhesive which is water based, and it can be easily removed without even the adhesive going inside the fabric. So it is very light, it is very weak kind of treatment, but we intentionally do that so that the original material is not damaged. And I think now after 10 years, means next year it will be 10 years, because it was 2011 when we did this. Now it might need another treatment, fresh treatment with this adhesive film, which we created on a crippline, which is almost transparent silk, and it was just placed over it. And here the Chola Sahib Ji, you can see it in shape, proper shape, because the stripes were all damaged and many of them were lost. So this is the final condition of Chola Sahib Ji. This is the before condition. You can see how weak, and it's falling because it was vertical also at some point in time. When we went there, it was at a slope, but before that it was vertical also. So it's its own weight is causing the stress, and now it is like this. And the only thing that I want now is if we can provide some controlled microenvironment. This is the team. I think there was another boy. He is right now, I think, in the army. He's not here. He was also a part of the team. And these two were young conservators. They had just finished their masters that time and wanted to intern with me. So this is what we want. This is the instrument, like this is from another, this picture is taken from online, and this is a transparent kind of thing just to show how the display case is made. Suppose this is upper portion is the display case. Some instruments are installed at the bottom, and high pressure area is created. because that way the air won't move inside from whatever gaps, little gaps, the display case might be having at the joints. And lower oxygen environment is also there, and humidity is also controlled. Temperature is generally controlled in all these cases, or even in the rooms, or but at the Gurdwara Sahib, I don't think the temperature can be controlled continuously, but that doesn't damage that much as the changes in humidity and the dust. So this was all about Chola Sahib Ji. And the next is Darbar Sahib Ji, Sri Harmandir Sahib Ji. Here it was 2013, so by mistake I just put the date over there. That was in 2011, and this is in 2013. And the talks had started again in the same month, June, July, but we started actually studying and analyzing or doing the condition assessment in September 2013. And for 3 months, we were just doing the analysis. And okay, it's the next one. So we basically worked on, I have written here paintings, but it was actually much more than paintings. There was stucco work and gilded stucco work and some floral elements, the sculpted elements around the arches, a lot of written shabads also. So there was much more than just paintings. And these are the areas where we worked, like ceilings. They were all gilded stucco work, arches also gilded stucco work, and design elements were there. The walls were mainly painted, and there were window arches. They were also mainly painted. This is just a model of the first floor. Now, there were certain things which were beyond the decision making of conservation scientists or the conservators working in such live religious sites, because there are rituals which were very frequent and which might have some good or bad effects, like the rituals of decorating, and every month there would be some celebration or the other, and we had garlands and flowers, bouquets. They were hung on the walls, the corners, and the ceilings. And there are things like we spray water, also perfumed water. So at times it increases for paintings, it might be a little damaging. Then cleaning rituals were also there, because Sangat would come and they would really feel good if they are doing seva in all the nooks and corners of Darbar Sahib Ji. And they would clean the ceiling, the arches also, and with wet towels, which might damage the paintings. And celebrations and festivals that I have already mentioned, and management of inflow of pilgrims. This is something I would like to people to study about this, because the structure is a heritage structure, very old, when there was no electricity, and there's a huge inflow of pilgrims from all over the world, and I don't know if the structure can bear that much of load. So that should be studied. I think that is the structural part, which is beyond our art conservation thing. Then there was telecast and electronic device management, because the wires were hanging from various places. And I think that is done now. So initially, these were the things which we thought are affecting the art conservation part also, but it was beyond the decision making of a conservator. So these are the on-site conditions. This is the area above. This is first floor above Har Ki Pauri, and in this map you can see it is this area, this whole thing. This is Parikrama, and this is the area which is in this picture. So every day there were huge number of sangat, and this is a parikrama which is a little less people right now, but most of the time you can see in another picture, this is also parikrama. If we are working there, everybody is curious, and that's good. Rather, I'll just mention this is again the upper area above Har Ki Pauri. where one of my teammates is trying to clean the arch, but of course it must be scared because of the rush around. Um, Now the condition assessment, diagnosis. Mm, we did again the same process: visual inspection, technical analysis, microscopic analysis, and chemical analysis. And we made the damage mapping, which was also done more accurately on Photoshop and different softwares. And we found through this later on, when we removed the wooden frames of the glasses, when we started the work, we found that there were paintings underneath. These underneath paintings are by Gyan Singh, and we came to know from his family now, which lives around Golden Temple and have a shop over there. They explained that how he wouldn't come even for dinner unless and until he had finished the portion, because these are true frescoes, the underneath paintings. These are true frescoes, as true fresco means the painting done on a wet lime, and a artist would plaster only that portion of wall which he can paint in one day. So and he has to do it very meticulously with a small wooden thing. He pushes it, also knocks on it so that the pigment goes inside the plaster. They are more stable, but when they might have been falling apart or maybe getting damaged because of a lot of sangat and people touching the paintings, so they might have decided upon repainting, because at that time maybe the concept of conservation or preservation wasn't there. So these paintings were later overpainted by Bhai Atma Singh, and so they are not true fresco because they are dry, already painted surface. They are not on wet plaster. So this was all done. So we wanted to see the underneath paintings, but they were not visible because the layer was thick. So we tried certain technology. We also studied the environment, wind direction, because in certain areas the damage was more than other areas which were not directly in front of the windows, carrying the humid wind. And we also did analysis of the pigments to some extent, and they were all earth pigments, the mineral pigments, which are very stable. They don't change with time, and there's no chemical change. So this is the list of pigments that we identified. And after that, the deterioration part, you can see the deterioration in one of the panels. This was covered by glass, but even then, the damage is so much, because maybe this was in front of this particular panel, I know, because we started our work from here, and this was in front of the window in the parikrama area. So the humid air which gets trapped in the glass cannot move out, and it causes this kind of flaking. And there are many kinds of damages, because there are different kinds of artworks over there, but there are three categories I'll explain in the next picture. Here, this area has all the three main categories of damage, because here on the right side you can see there's a frame, it is covered by glass, and this portion is actually from a window arch. So this portion, upper portion, has a similar painting, but it is yellowed and brown because it was a curved area and it couldn't be covered by glass at that time. Nowadays we might have some acrylic sheets which can be molded into a shape, but that time they were just being protected by glass, and in the cover areas you couldn't put glass, so they had varnished it. And the varnish is at that time, whatever varnish was being used, it has a characteristic of aging, and with aging it becomes brittle and yellow, and then brown, and ultimately black. So it becomes brittle also. And the third damage over here is where the the artwork is covered with grime, a lot of grime that you can't even see what is underneath it. So multiple layers of grime and all, and there was loss of paint over here also. So this is one portion where of the arch of the window where you can see. Otherwise, these are the similar paintings are on the wall panel, which is covered by glass, and this portion is actually, the background is white in all of them. But here it is not appearing white because the varnish had darkened and become brittle, and because of its getting brittle and shrinking. These cracks have developed, and there are loss of paint in different areas. And these gaps were, from time to time, they were being, I think, repaired by just putting a little paint, because this is a green background. So this loss was just, there was some green paint put on it. And this was actually white, but because it is darkened varnish, so it was appearing yellowish. So this area is colored with yellow. So this kind of faulty restoration was also there at that point in time. This is again another example of the same flaking, and you can see here this is not the original white. There are some brush strokes of fresh white being painted. Here also, I think it is visible in a much better form. This is the old restoration, and this is again, these are old retouchings. Conservation treatment included, again, basically what we do in conservation is we want to remove anything that is damaging, that may further damage the object or painting in future. And you can call it cleaning, but it is not general cleaning with some cleansing agents like colin or something, or a soap, but it is very specific. We have to know the pH and the solvents, or whether it is a very mild kind of saponifying agent, what percentage. So, or should we use a gel? So it's a very advanced kind of, very subtle kind of cleaning for conservation. Then we also want to, because most of the things with age are getting weak and they're torn or they have lost areas there. So we want to add some strength through a material or technique which is compatible with the original and is reversible or retreatable. And the last thing that we want to do is preservation, either by adding some preservative coating or putting it in an environment which is not damaging, the microenvironment is controlled. Now, pre-consolidation was done because at times you can't even clean if it is very fragile. So there were places like that panel, which was in an earlier slide, the paint was flaking off. So we can't even clean it unless and until we have stabilized it. Even in the window arches, we couldn't clean unless and until we know that the paint layer is stable enough. So we tried different methods. One of these is, and all of them are reversible. They give us some strength initially. One of them is like this, but this wasn't used everywhere. Mostly we preferred the other method, but initially we had tried all of them. So the other one is, I'll just explain this one, why we tried this. This is a spray of kind of microcrystalline wax, and this sublimes with time. So when we spray it, and of course remove the excess of it with a solvent, so whatever little, if you see in these areas, it has gone into the cracks. In this picture it is not very clear, but I had some more pictures. Somehow I couldn't get the time to add that picture. It had gone into the cracks, and this thing was removed with a cotton dipped in a solvent, and in the depths it was there, but from the surface we had removed it. So what happens then, you can clean this area. We know there is a varnish which needs to be removed. It is brittle and it is brown. So we got the time, because it was strengthened for a while, and we got the time to clean it. And by the time we completed cleaning, after a few days, this whole wax sublimes. It goes into nothing is left, and then we can do the proper permanent consolidation. The cleaning is done and we can do the consolidation. So this is one picture of the cleaning in the window arched background area. And we use triethanolamine, also very mild cleansing agent in certain panels. And this is again with triethanolamine. You can see we haven't done any retouching. Just by cleaning, it looks like new now. It was earlier like this. And we used some solvent-based gels also, just to test initially, because there was varnish in the areas. And these are those test patches. You can see the result. And the paint which was flaking off was also later on consolidated by injecting some consolidants, conservation grade consolidants, which are reversible. You can remove them anytime. This is all fixing the flaking of paints. You can see here it is not flaking, it is lost. The paint is no more there. So it had to be in painted after giving a proper strength. Not the whole thing is painted. We just paint the areas which are the gaps. We fill them, bring them to the level of the original paint layer, and then do the in painting. And you can't make out from a distance. So filling and consolidation was done all over. This is another very fine example done by the first team that came, and I'll show you the picture of those young conservators who were just learning. This was, I think, their first experience. They were learning, and this is the brittle varnish is making the paint layer also come off, and it was filled just from the. And we have tried to save as much whatever paint layer is left. Only the losses are filled. This is another example of a window back portion, and how we just fill it, and we are not painting this already where the paint layer is already there. We don't overpaint it, but we just paint the rest of the area where there is no paint layer by matching it with the pattern around. Another example of the window arch and the back. This is the whole arch. Actually, this is the back area, which is facing the Sarovar. And there must have been earlier some losses, and which were filled by Suneli because it is golden, which is used to paint furniture and all. So we had to remove all these deteriorating agents and fill them with proper conservation grade material. And now this is how it looks. The whole, you should see that there is nothing new. It is the same thing, cleaned and strengthened. These are the design elements of the arches. Initially, we couldn't even see that this was gold gilding. Rest of the arches, the design elements also, and other arches were totally black. Only after first cleaning test patch, we found that there was actually gold gilding inside. So gold gilding cannot be, you have to redo it. So it was, all the gaps were filled properly with the compatible material, and they were done as before. So this is without the artwork, the blue color outline. And during the process of this is how we made it, completed it, and then the gilding was done, and then the painting. And this is what I was mentioning, that it is a good thing that we are doing it in full public view, because the process is transparent, and the curiosities, there were so many questions from the Sangha. They were very helpful also. We had some problems also when some of our work was wiped off because of the cleaning that is done by Sangat regularly. But it was overall a very nice, very enriching experience, both for the Sangat as well as the conservators. This is another example of a panel. We're just cleaning. It is mainly cleaning, no in painting, nothing. But in this panel, you can see there is a lot of loss of paint. And this, when we had removed the glass, immediately we had put cyclododecane, sprayed the cyclododecane because the paint was coming off. So we couldn't take the picture before it because our first action was to preserve whatever little pieces are left. And then we treated it properly, cleaned and consolidated further. In painting also done. This is another close-up of the same panel. These are the pillars, one pillar, one of the many pillars. And this is again a design element which was totally broken in Harki Pori, the first floor area where there's a big bead. And this is how it was after, because we could make out, there was another element which wasn't broken that much, and we could see the shading, how it was, and we could exactly make the same thing. So we have been doing a lot of restructuring process also. These are the ceilings, and just by cleaning you can see that there's a huge difference. But from a distance there is nothing more than cleaning, but there were actually, this is also cleaning, huge difference you can see. This is above the Harkipur area where there's a big bead Sahib Ji, and these were the small losses which you can't make out from a distance because they are not white initially. They just merge with the surroundings and you can't make out. So there were many of them, and I have pictures of all those, and we had recreated all the lost areas and then gilded them. This is that where the big bead is there, and it was like this. I have a picture without this bulb on, and it was totally dark. And you can see the next picture after conservation without any light. There are no bulbs here now, but just by itself, the gold gilding when it was cleaned, and it had to be done again also, especially in these arches. This was completely lost. This whole area was lost. If you see in the previous picture, it was all lost. So the whole thing is over here, everything is lost, and lime is visible, the white lime is visible. So it was done properly, and this was the element. One of these elements was broken, and we had created that you saw in the earlier slide. This was the first team, Wajida, Noori, and they were from Leh, and some were from Delhi, some were from other states of India. And after this, many artists also came when the in-painting work was to be done. And somehow I couldn't include all the pictures, but this was the very first team, and they're very young conservators, very fresh. And just these two, I think, had a little 2-month experience in Leh Ladakh. And let's see, that was all for Darbar Sahib Ji. And I would just share a few more pictures about what other things we were able to do. This was Jora Sahib Ji from Chak village. And this was all broken in pieces, and it was properly conserved. I couldn't do more than this because that would have been more intervention. So the thumb rule is minimum intervention. We don't have to add anything. I think in this, there was a little support, invisible kind of support added because it was all pieces. And there were some hukamnamas. These were, you won't find anything wrong with this, but these were laminated. And they had a wood backing, which is very damaging for paper. And this, if you see in this picture, this is more stable one. I have many pictures, but I don't have time. And this lamination is coming off, and it was taking off the ink also with it. So it was important to remove the lamination. And this is what we are doing. Maybe this was a damage. And this is the plastic laminate, and there was some patch added to this to support it, and we carefully removed it. There were patches, stickers at the back, and we had used, this is actually a very thin, you can say it is a special paper, 3 microns or 2 microns thick. And we give the support of this, and then a thicker one. So I'm working here on this, and this is the final thing. And we put it in a acid-free board. The backing is also acid-free, and the front is also acid-free. And this reflection is because I have put a mylar, conservation grade, you can say plastic kind of sheet, but it is conservation grade. Then this is 10th Guru's Dastar Sahib Ji. That was in a very bad shape, and it shouldn't be folded at the folds, it was breaking off. And this is how after conservation we rolled it. This is Janam Sakhi, just one page of Janam Sakhi during conservation process. That's all. And another, this is a canvas painting of Guru Nanak Dev Ji by Sobha Singh. You won't find any difference in before and after picture, but here you can see there were huge flaking, and paint was coming off. And it was very interesting because normally the flaking is in the background. But here I found, once I removed the canvas from the backing, wooden backing, board backing, that there was a huge colonies of many colonies of fungus at the back of it, and this was because of that fungus. That it wasn't normal cracking that we find in canvas or oil paintings. That's all. Thank you so much. And this is my business name is Heritage Preservation Atelier.
Thank you, Namita. Thank you so much. I know I have a lot of questions for you, and I know there's a lot of questions from the audience as well. So I'm just gonna go with some of the questions that came. One of them was from Arvinder Malhotra. He said, "Has any carbon dating been done to tell us the age of the Chola Sahib? How old is it?" Or
Yeah. I would just like to answer this. I think I had it was asked me earlier also. Carbon dating is actually, it needs a lot of sample. So, but we have a technique now, we are working on it, which can date with very small amount of a little fiber of the fabric. And if it is silk, then especially it would be very helpful, because silk is proteinaceous. Sorry. So we are working on it, and I'm really keen to take a little fiber, if there is some fallen fiber or something, and do the testing with that new technique, which actually we have. I won't go into the technicalities. It is not testing the carbon, but the protein structure, because protein structure also changes with time. And we are in carbon dating, we are seeing that how much carbon 12 has changed into carbon 14. In this, we'll be testing that how much protein has turned from dextrorotatory to levorotatory, or I think the other way around. So there is a new technique. It is still under development, and we will be using that if given a chance.
So in the near future, you're hoping
we
to do that. So another interesting question, and I'm sure this will interest a lot of our viewers, is as a woman leading a woman team, can you share some of your experiences at both Darbar Sahib and Chola Sahib, or anywhere else? Do you encounter any interesting experiences?
Not as such. It's same, because boys were also, they joined in when we were doing the art in painting work. Mm-hmm. Not exactly within the team. Are you asking within the team, or
from the spaces? Like, say when you went to Darbar Sahib and majority of your team comprised of women, did you run into any issues or restrictions?
No. Initially, it wasn't. There was never such thing. But of course, in one area where there's a Guru Granth Sahib Ji in the central area, there we were told not to. No, females can't work on that platform to do that cleaning work. Rest of the thing we all did, and there was no issue. But there was one point when that area was that scaffolding was created, and it was just we were allowed, like they said, just Amritdhari boys can land on that platform. So that is it.
Okay. Another interesting question was you had talked about there was a painting that was painted over. This question is from Simar Singh. Did you notice any paintings of gurus that were later painted over with flowers or floral motifs?
No, we couldn't find any underpaintings apart from the areas where there was a wooden frame.
Okay.
So they must have been covered by the frame, so the rest of the portion was overpainted. There is just one painting of Guru Har Gobind Sahib Ji, 10th Guruji, in the staircase, because when I studied its pictures, very close-ups, and you can say zoomed in and all the pictures, then I found that there was a lot of retouching done. So I didn't want to touch that. But we did a little bit of consolidation, you can say, because things were coming off, and that is a very corner kind of area in the staircase. So that wasn't overpainted, but a lot of retouchings, because it's
Yeah.
very old. That is the oldest painting of from Maharaja Ranjit Singh's time. That is the only one. All rest of the paintings are 20th century paintings. So
Okay.
that is the only one which was the oldest. So maybe there are many times like sevas are done, and so there were, I could find, but I didn't do any microscopic study on that, or chemical analysis. I was a little scared of reaching that area. So no other overpaintings were seen. Yeah.
So one more question for you. I mean, we have a lot more questions, but one question that pops into my head is, when you leave a site, whether it is the Chola Sahib Gurdwara or Darbar Sahib, is there a level of education that you have to do for the sevadars and the caretakers behind, so that there is
Yeah.
upkeep, there's no further deterioration? Like, how does that work? And are people willing to learn and listen to you, because you put in a lot of effort and decades of experience into conserving them, but when you leave, what happens then?
Actually, we had planned to create a manual for the whole organization. SGPC is a very organized kind of organization, and we thought that we'll put all our suggestions over there. But somehow we couldn't do it because the project took much longer than it was planned. And but yes, as far as we are concerned, we learn a lot. And even the sevadars, because their postings are changed, their positions are changed, but whoever was there when we were working there, they learned a lot, I think so. And they were by the end of the project, they were much better in handling. But of course, some kind of tutorial or something should be there, because it would help a lot. Because otherwise, when the cleanings are done, they were mainly done with wet towel, and that damages the paint surface. So sevadars can help the sangat in letting know that what is good and what is not good for Darbar Sahib Ji. Yeah.
Okay. Another question was, did you ever discover any bullet holes, or were bullet holes destroyed any of the paintings or frescoes in your work there?
No, I don't think so, because I have touched almost each and every corner. I don't think there is. I saw maybe they were filled or something, but on surface there were no bullet holes.
You didn't. Maybe I think the Akal Takht might have had more than Darbar Sahib.
Yeah, Akal Takht. No, Darshni Deori has. Darshni Deori has bullet holes, and they're marked also, I think. I'm not sure, but I think they're marked. So Darshni Deori has a lot of bullet holes, but not inside.
Not inside Darbar Sahib per se.
Yeah, not inside the parikrama where we were working on the first floor, or Harki Pori, the portion above the Harki Pori.
Yeah.
So I don't remember having any such. Yeah.
Another question was, do you seal the art in a way so that the public that does seva does not, touch it in the future? Maybe with the glass.
Right now they are they are covered by glass except the staircase, but it can be done better. Like we can have a microenvironment, the ceiling, like in a way that which controls the humidity. So our work was still conservation of the paintings only. Otherwise, if we couldn't do the preservation part, though I tried in some of the open panels, I tried one particular preservative coating, which is scratch proof also, so that if somebody scratches through or there is no damage to the paint layer. That was just tested on one panel. And other preservative coatings in Indian environment, they are not very successful. They cause blanching. And I think we can do better with glass, with a better quality of glass, and some kind of arrangement inside the glass which controls the humidity and the dirt. So that can be done. It's not right now. Right now, it's not done that way.
I know we discussed another thing was the outside of the Darbar Sahib, the gold plates or the copper plates that were gilded.
Yes, yes, yes.
What happens with that?
Yeah, that is interesting because mostly people, out of faith, we all want to touch and clean, do the seva of gold, and we try to clean. But we are cleaning till now. What I have seen when I was there, I was seeing every year we are cleaning, we are
Mm,
scrubbing it with tamarind water and scrubbers, because these sheets are actually gold gilded copper plates. So the gold is very thin layer of gold. No matter
mm,
how many gold leaves have been used, it is not actually the solid gold. So
mm,
it is being abraded, it is being worn off. And a better way would be for once, I have some examples from word over also, where this thing has been done. There's a new technique, and we can just first of all find out which are the areas, do the mapping where the gold has become thinner or lost totally, and we can apply gold with the brush electroplating. That is the technique, um, where we are just using a solution salt of gold and using electrodes and brushing that solution, and it is depositing the gold on the plate. So that way it would be adding gold. But what we are doing right now is we are removing gold from the gold plates when we are cleaning it. So that is one thing, of course, I believe in. Yeah, can be
interesting.
done. Yeah.
I know there's one technical question here. Is where did it go? Oh yeah. I guess it disappeared. It was something about was solvents used. Oh yeah, was the majority of the varnish removed with solvent gels or mechanically with swabs?
Okay, no, it wasn't actually our the saponifying agent that we were using for other panels that did a good job with the varnish also. So we initially, though we had tested solvents and gel, solvent wasn't working well, but its gel was working. But even that was a little hard. And when we tried the different formulation with a little 2 to 3% saponifying agent, so it worked much better. So we had used that. So we haven't used solvents, though we tested, and I have shown in the presentation also. So initially we had tested all the things, but solvents, because it had become insoluble. The varnish was very old and it was very brittle, so it wasn't dissolving that easily in the solvent. So it had to be removed with a different formulation, which included a saponifying agent.
Interesting. Um,
Yeah.
this is maybe a very you can short answer this. Have you looked into the frescoes and the paintings at Baba Atal Rai, which is right
Yeah,
next to Darbar Sahib?
yes, yes.
And
I
what do
have
you think?
seen, yeah. I have seen, but not during that period when we were working there, because most of the work we wanted to work it in, finish it in time, but it was stretching too much. So earlier I had seen, but there some conservation work was already going on by a different team.
Hmm.
So I can't comment on that. Yeah.
So there was a different team that was working on
Yeah,
the
they were
paintings there.
working there since I think many years or something. I don't remember. Um, but I think SGPC and the team, they were off and on working over there, not continuously, but I think off and on.
Okay.
I'm not sure about that because I haven't seen much of it. I
Okay.
know the paintings I have visited much earlier, much before we started
Mhm.
work over here. So, yeah.
Um, I had a question for you. So you're based in Chandigarh and you do a lot of work in Punjab and other states. A lot of us watching today are from, UK, Canada, the US, and other parts of the world. Do you have any sort of expectations from the Sikh community in the diaspora? Are you looking for something from Jamaica and then a Barde Sikh per se?
Angie. I don't know about expectation. Life has somehow pushed me, like, yeah, welcomed me to on this path. I was totally not, I was more of a science person. Maybe that's why it helped also.
Right.
And actually, one auntie from Gudani Kala. She is in US since 1970s, and she introduced me. And right now also she is so keen on working on various objects of Sikh heritage. And but I don't know. There are many factors. There are fundings also. Right now, my lab is a very small room, a little larger room, and so there are things that can be done, maybe together. And she was the one who introduced me to Chola Sahib Ji. It was from her village only, and she funded it. She did the seva and arranged all the material and the salaries and all for conservators. So yes, this kind of work can be done. There are many more. There is one Guru Nanak Dev Ji's Chola Sahib, which needs conservation. There is one 10th Guru's at Anandpur Sahib. There is another one which I don't remember the village, but that is again of 10th Guru Sahib Ji, and that was in pieces, and it can be maybe brought it back into shape. And also there are so many things that can be done. And of course, this is a very I'm really I should thank all of you again that you gave me chance to communicate, and maybe we can do things together. We can do preserve a lot of Sikh heritage together.
Thank you so much for your time. I think we have one question, and then we will be wrapping it up after that. Is what are some projects that you are working on this year and looking forward to next year that are ongoing or are going to start next year?
Okay, I don't know about next year. Right now, I am working on like I worked a little on in Patiala in Kila Mubarak, but that is right now it is at halt. And there's some work going on in Rathachatar, and I'm also working on another. There are two more spiritual organizations. One is in Gujarat. Their work is almost done, but they are constantly in touch with me, like whatever they need. They have huge collection of their Guruji, and they are doing it slowly. So I just guide them almost every year. I spend some time. And there's another organization, which Dev Samaj in Himachal. They have some colleges and schools in Chandigarh also. So they are also now doing, the conservation work is almost done. Now I am taking up their preservation. Now, all the objects that have been conserved would now be preserved in microenvironment controlled display cases and microenvironment controlled storage boxes. So that is how we are trying to preserve. And so we are setting up their museum also, where...
Have you taken a look at the museum that's at Darbar Sahib?
Yeah, I have. And rather, because I'm too small for that thing, there was a tender, and I wanted to do it because all the museums right now in India, they don't have preventive microenvironment display cases or storage cases. They are normal boxes kind of thing. So I wanted to do something over there because there's a very nice collection of painting, everything, all kind of artifacts and armory and all. So I have applied in, it's long time back, 2015 it was there, and in collaboration, in consortium with the two Italian firms, who are mainly, one is an old lady, and she's very much experienced. She has done Vatican also in Italy, so in designing and all. So she's very much experienced. So I have picked up 2-3 organizations, and we have made a consortium and applied. But it is 2020 now, 5 years on, but there was no decision made.
Okay, well, hopefully there is a decision made.
We were shortlisted, and we were in last 2 or 3 firms, but again, so hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yes, definitely. Well, thank you so much, Namita, for your time, for your expertise, and the tireless work that you do behind the scenes, preserving our Sikh heritage and making sure that the coming generations can see and experience this beautiful, rich heritage. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you,
Thank you,
everybody.
Sanmit.
No
And
problem.
thank you, Sikh Foundation International.
Yep,
It was really my pleasure to be able to share all the experiences. And conservation needs this kind of, you can say, people don't know much about this field of work. So thank you so
absolutely.
much.
Thank you. And join us next time. Some of the next panelists are on the screen. We have Fakir Saifuddin, Diamond Sordi,
Yeah.
and Nadra Khan. So for the next
Wow.
few exciting weeks, keep it locked on the Facebook page. And
Yeah,
thank you so
sure.
much, and have a good evening, good
Sure.
morning, good night, wherever you are. Sat Shri Akal.
Yeah.